What do you see as the biggest pitfall for young artists in this industry right now with their careers?
I can't give you one answer to that, but through my observations, I could give you a couple of things. I think um, happens is um, quick. A lot of artists have. A lot of artists don't want to do the work, aren't willing to do the work, and they have a quick, fast mentality. They want the turnover to happen overnight, and it doesn't. On rare occasions that it does, the longevity won't be there, and I think when you look at the ones who have been successful, if you really trace back what they did to get there, you will find that they're deep in the game and they got the rules right. Most artists get deep in the game and they got the rules missing. You could catapult your career and skip some steps on the ladder and make it all the way to the top, but the steps you're missing are gonna hurt you at some point because you don't know. And so through experience and hard work, like if you look at someone like Drake, who people think happened overnight, but he didn't. He put out multiple mixtapes before people discovered So Far Gone. A mixtape that really kind of helped catapult his career. But if you look at his history, the dude had been performing, or trying to perform, or trying to record, or Melanie, Fiona, and him were part of a collective at some point, did some things together. It was a history to him before he became who he is. Kendrick Lamar, the same thing. Some people started at Section 80, but Kendrick had been rapping for years before the rest of the world really started to discover him. Saying all them TDE boys, like I met J-Rock, I don't even know how many years ago, on the streets of LA. Just came to, I said, man, I'm gonna go to Crenshaw, and whoever meet me there, I'm gonna take a record. I'm gonna record your vocals and play you on the Wake Up Show. And J-Rock was one of those artists who did it. Skyy the Prince. Another guy who put in a lot of work. Murs has been around for years. Putting in work, and now now he teamed up with Strange Music. Point I'm making is, put the work in, and even if the result isn't what you want it to be at the time you want it to be, everything happens in time. And every moment that you dedicate and commit to your career and your craft will eventually pay off at some point later on. The laws of the universe, what you put in, you should get back. You will get back. And so that's one of the pitfalls I think that a lot of new artists face is not the willingness, The second one that I think is probably the biggest one is imitation. Like a lot of artists are like cookie cutter imitations of their favorite artists. You hear it in their style of rap, and they swear I don't want to hear that Migos flow no more. Let Migos have that flow. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear you sound like Kendrick. Let Kendrick sound like Kendrick. Eminem had that problem. A lot of people start sounding like Eminem. Em put in work, did a lot of battles. If you want to separate yourself from the fray, there's a term called radical differentiation, and that's how you have radical results. If you running with the flock, then or with the herd, we ain't gonna be able to tell you apart from the next animal that's in the herd. So find a way to stand out and be different. And then thirdly, find your voice. I think a lot of artists are really repeating or remixing the same things that other people said. There are so many artists that sound like Future to me right now that, and it's interesting about Future, who comes from a musical family with the Dungeon family, is, he had been working in and out around music for years too. And we early on made comparisons to him and T-Pain because they both use similar machines. to alter their voices. But neither one of them, you know, I mean, Roger from Roger Zapp was
from Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio. That's where you're from. Was the first person I ever heard really utilize that the way he did, you know. And so, but I've heard so many artists that sound like Future, even new artists, I mean established artists that are trying to adapt his style because it works for him. And he's gotten a lot of success on radio because of it. Imitation. Artists should stop imitating other artists and quit relying on gimmicks it may work for a minute, but there's no substance in it. Like, I can name, and I'm not going to do this because I don't want to slay artists, but there are about 10 artists I can think of right now that were hot a year ago. Some 2 years ago. Some 3 years ago. And if I said their name, you go, oh, yeah.
What happened to?
What happened to?
Yes.
And I will also say educate yourself about technology and the business and utilize it as an advantage. We didn't have that in the 90s. You know, these platforms that you can get your music, let it be heard, and utilize. If you're going to emulate anything, emulate the steps that someone took to get themselves out. Drake did 3 or 4 mixtapes before he was able to get his deal. Maybe that'll help, you know, following that perhaps, but not creatively.
Right.
Don't be Drake. Follow somebody's great work ethic. But a lot of artists don't do that, and they rely too much on fashion to make this to get records played. You know,
that and the dances.
And
don't forget the dances. And 500 people behind them.
Behind you. Yo, fashion to get you looked at, and it ain't gonna get you, it might get you a couple of spins, but it ain't gonna build your career unless you're going into fashion.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you've already touched on some of this a little bit, but you've already had a dream career. I mean, most people who work their whole lives will never do a third of what you've already been able to accomplish. But what else is there that you want to try that you haven't tried yet?
Skyyhook.
This is my favorite noise, by the way. If I can stump Sway, I'm doing all right.
You're doing all right. I mean, there's a couple of things that
You can't put it in. You can't put it out there yet.
I don't like to.
Okay.
You know, I'll tell you one thing I would love to do is, you know, I had a chance to, well, I'm not going to go into that, that's too deep. I want to take the skills that I've been able to acquire and learn over the years working during the Wake Up Show. You know, it really started before the Wake Up Show with King Tech and me. It was us starting with a dream to become rap artists in a group, you know, that wasn't realized because we couldn't get a record deal because I was from Oakland. I had a West Coast accent, and the majority of the music business was based out of New York, and they just wasn't getting it or hearing it. And that caused us to go to the left a little bit, and that became a challenge. Back to the competitive thing. It was like, screw y'all. Who are you to dictate whether or not we're able to be creative and how we choose to do it? And so I started taking courses at San Francisco State. Took engineering program. Yes. And I took law aspects of the music industry and also learned about marketing and distribution. And then we started All City Records from my mother's house in my bedroom, All City Productions. And then we learned how to record, mix, and master music, and then take it to Rainbow Records down in LA and press them up, make lacquer and make vinyl, and put out cassettes and CDs at that time. And I learned about distribution and consignments and how to put music out in retailers and how to work with one-stops, which were like the in-between guy from a distributor in retail that you get product to or from quicker. You might have to pay a little more or make a little less, but your product could be able to pollinate in the public. And the public would have access to it. Consumers would have access to it. And I found at that moment that, okay, really, as long as I stay in my base, my talent base, there's not a whole lot we can't do that we set our mind to. And so we started making money selling all this music independently, and we were teenagers, you know. And so, and we kept, it enabled us to continue to record music, and then we started producing other artists. We had a group called Full Resistance out of San Jose. We had a group called New Craze that was from the Bay. A couple of dudes used to break with Tech. I used to write some of their R&B group. I used to write some of the songs. I was still rapping. And then I entered a rap contest in the Bay. Won it. In the winter, they would play your song on KMEL. Tech entered the DJ competition. He won. And as a winner, they would play the mix. You get a 40-minute mix. So they played one of our songs, and in a 40-minute mix, you know, we went bonkers. He went off and was playing like Farrakhan speeches over James Brown beats. It was just something unheard of, and KMEL is a P1 station. I mean,
right.
It's a crossover station, you know. And it got so popular that after doing that for free for a year, Tech wanted to take it further. I said, man, we got to do something more with this, because the industry wasn't coming to the Bay, and we needed that for the culture to, you know, grow. So that's how the idea of the Wake Up Show came up. He wanted to do something bigger and call it the Wake Up Show. And I was like, wake up, that's a double entendre, because it came on at nighttime.
Right.
You need to stop? Or you could? Okay. Stop? Okay. It was a double entendre because the Wake Up Show came on at nighttime, but we were enlightening to people to parts of hip-hop culture that they weren't being privy to. So the rapper / DJ producer became independent record company holders as teenagers, still performing, producers as well. And then the KMEL allowed us to do the Wake Up Show, and the rest became history, because the business sense I learned made me want to stop rapping and to be behind the scenes and help put music out and oversee that part. While we all kind of contributed on the Wake Up Show, but Tech was over the creative. We start changing the landscape of how radio plays rap. Nobody was playing rap music on a station like that in any day part. We taught them how to surround rap records like Public Enemy or Ice Cube or Tribe Called Quest for pop records, and it still worked. And as a result of that, KMEL became the first mainstream station to play rap in every day part. Hot 97 was playing dance music at that time. They weren't even on that, you know. So, and then I saw had bigger sites where we should syndicate the show. And Tech had bigger sites. We should go down to LA. And so we started communicating with the program director, and we had Clear Channel. We kind of put them in a net code and said, man, we want to be syndicated, otherwise we're going to go to the other company. You know, Emmett and Power 106 at that time had Big Boy over there and the Baker Boys. Right. And we went and talked with them to come to LA. And Baker Boys used to come up to our show and watch the show, and they were down in San Diego, I believe, initially. And when they got to LA, it was like a family, you know. And we ended up going with the competition, the beat, because we just felt like it was a better fit for us. And then that's when I started trying to syndicate the show. King Tech and I started syndicating the show to all these different marketplaces: Philly, Chicago, LA, Virginia, the West Indies, France, Japan. You know, all these different places start picking up the show. And then we started doing the concert tours, the Wake Up Show 101 tours, which eventually led to be what people know as Rock the Bells. We were doing that with Chang and Guerrilla Union before there was a Rock the Bell. So,
it's crazy.
In fact, it could have been called Wake Up Show. You know, we sat down and talked about them licensing the name, but the deal wasn't right. The point I'm making is all of this created this skill set that now I feel like there's no environment I can't walk into and find a way to adjust. That's why I was able to go into politics and go into humanitarian things and pop, talk to Bono from U2, right, or, you know, talk to Quentin Tarantino. You know, I would like something to try is, I'm big on sports. I love boxing. And one day I want to commentate a boxing match.
Wow.
And call a boxing match. I don't necessarily want to do it for a living, But, you know, we got our Off the Bat show on MTV2 now,
Mm-hmm.
and we're dealing with baseball. Major League Baseball comes on Tuesdays, 11 p.m., and I'm having the time of my life talking with Bryce Harper or Adam Jones or CC Sabathia or, you know, Coco Crisp or Sonny Gray, you know, all these Major League Baseball players, and it's just a natural fit, you know. And so I think the same could happen with boxing. But my ultimate goal would be to retire from all this and become a professional angler and make money catching large and smallmouth bass in a lake for the rest of my life.
Okay.
That'll be my ultimate goal.
Okay.
That was a long ass answer.
It was, but we all got goals to get to, I guess. And
Yeah,
you
I'm
do
trying to get to fishing, Sky. Trying to get to fishing.
Okay, my last question.
Mm-hmm.
What are the 5 words that describe you best?
I can't say them because it wouldn't, you know, the first word would be humility, you know, but
Absolutely.
the second word would be curious, competitive,
2 more.
open or fertile-minded, and then happy be the 5th.
Happy.
Happy.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving us
So,
your
this
time.
your first one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I appreciate you. Again, I'm so blessed. I'm so excited that I get to say this gentleman is one of my mentors. And I knew that there was a wealth of information there that you guys don't get to hear, but I get to hear these stories all the time. And for my very first interview that we're doing with The Hook, I wanted to make sure that I put out something that was hip-hop in the right time. And it was grown-up hip-hop, because I know y'all aren't going to let me do grown-up hip-hop too much around here. So, you know what's going on. Check us out next week, allhiphop.com. We out.
Good interview.